Erin, you had some great thoughts to share with us this morning about that. But what's your take on, kind of like demystifying the role of a recruiter and like kind of de-scarifying like what we do?
Excuse me while I step up onto my soapbox.
Yeah.
We are not the bad guys. Internal recruiters are not the villain. We're here to facilitate that matchmaking process. And if you've ever attempted dating at all, you know how difficult that is. And it's not always a match. And it doesn't mean that either party is not a good person or anything like that. So it is your first introduction to a company, whether it is an external recruiter or an internal recruiter. But the best way that you can think about that is your new partner. That is your new best friend. You should be able to ask them questions and they should be able to ask you questions. And that initial interview is just as important as that interview that you're going to have with a hiring manager down the road. We are not hiding information. We're not Scrooge McDuck. We don't have all of these like extra dollars that we're withholding from you. I don't get the dollars that I don't give you from a job. My goal is always to get the best possible offer for my candidate as possible. And the best way for that to happen is for us to be able to communicate. I will say that something that I hope changes in the future is I'm very hesitant sometimes to give honest feedback. And I would love it if we could create a safe space where recruiters, internal, external career coaches can give honest feedback that will be received and not seen as an attack. Because if you think about the way that a recruitment process works, that is what, an hour, 2 hours in which you have to essentially introduce yourself, sell yourself, get somebody invested in you. That's not that much time. That's also anywhere from 3 to 5 to 6 to 7 people who all have to be on board too, because you're interviewing with multiple people. So when you say something, you might not think how it might be perceived by somebody. But if you have that relationship with your recruiter where they can say, hey, listen, I know that we've all had really crappy teams that we've worked with, or that person that we don't want to go to with anything, or the nightmare client. But your hiring manager doesn't want to hear about that. They're already thinking 10 steps ahead. Well, crap, what if they talk about me this way down the road? Or is this somebody who always approaches things with a negative viewpoint? So your recruiter is your friend. Be nice to us.
We also, Erin, I think a theme that came up a lot in our earlier conversation was like how to help your recruiter help you, help us help you. And what are some components that that a candidate can do to help you advocate for them in the next step?
Yeah, it starts with the resume, honestly. If you have a resume that is concise, that is talking about you. And I think people are so guilty of when we get a resume. I don't know about you all. Even for my own resume, I go blank. I don't know what I do. I couldn't tell you what I've done for the past 10 years. I can't put it into words. I just work here. But sometimes it is creating that brag sheet of all of the things that you've done, because your resume shouldn't be a list of tasks. That's not going to help me understand you. Anybody can Google product designer, see what the job function is, and throw it onto a resume. I want to hear about your design challenges, your design process and thinking, and the specific projects that you worked on. So not necessarily treating that initial interview as this kind of general surface level, like, let me tell you what a product designer could do, but having specific examples to get to know you as a person is going to better help a recruiter sell you internally, externally. So this is like the one time that I'm like, it's all about you. It's all about me. Your resume should be all about you and not about all of the product designers that exist within the space. So that, I think, is hugely helpful in allowing a recruiter to better sell you. Honesty. If there's one person in the process that you can be honest with, it's the recruiter. So being able to tell them what you're looking for, so that recruiter can tell you, which is this position aligned with what you're looking for. Sometimes the answer is no. I had a candidate for a research role who loved to get into the nitty gritty of developing these surveys and research plans. And that wasn't what my position was. And I was able to just straight up tell her, based on what you said you wanted, this isn't it. So honesty is the best policy. As much detail about you as a person and an individual and a designer, as opposed to all of the designers, is going to help you go a long way in terms of helping a recruiter be your best friend.
And I think also with honesty is the best policy. I think there's like, you know, you were saying earlier, like hiring managers don't want to hear anything negative. Like if you came out of a really tough experience, there's like certain catchphrases people use where it's not speaking negatively about them, but you understand it was a negative experience without being negative, right? Like there's a certain kind of, you know, language that you can use. Like it was, you know, this was particularly challenging, but I learned X, Y, and Z. So it's kind of making that shit sandwich where you're like, this was great. This was like challenging. You never say like, oh, this was awful, or I didn't like this teammate, or like this was really hard. Because if you're saying such negative things in a very professional environment where you have to sell yourself, it's like, what are you actually going to be like on the job if you're letting even a whiff of that negativity out then? But I think there's like corporate speak. There's ways of saying it where it's like, okay, like I got it, that maybe that was really tough. And thank you for phrasing it in that way.
Right.
Yeah. I think
don't use it. Sorry, there we go.
No, I was just going to say, this is why we practice this stuff. It's sometimes you can be in an interview with someone and it just feels like such a good rapport. Like you guys are sitting back, kicking it, like really enjoying yourselves, but like they're not your friend. They are interviewing you. They're not your friend yet. So you cannot be that honest about like the shit show of past companies that you've worked for. It really needs to be super professional until you get hired. Then you can figure it out